What's up, friends? This is Ajax, and this was episode 8 of the Golden Age of Broscience podcast. This episode was special to me because I got to interview Josh Bryant, who has been one of my, I'd say, top 5 intellectual influences. He's been a coach for a long time. He's written a number of books, which I would highly recommend to everybody. And I discovered his work almost 20 years ago when I got into fitness, and he's been a kind of mentor that way. And I've also had the chance to meet him in person as well about 10, 11 years ago. For this episode, 2 companies I want to shout out. The first is one that I own and operate with my wife, Ferta, a fertility company. We help couples optimize reproductive health using optimization principles. If you want to conceive in the near future, or if you want to just get your hormones dialed in to be as healthy as possible before you become a parent, contact us and set up a discovery call. The second company is one you guys, I think, know well, Elite Research USA. If you are a bro scientist and you like to experiment with peptides, check them out. AJAC10 is the affiliate code, and join my Biohacker and Bro Science group on Telegram. With that said, let's get to the episode.
What's up, everybody? This is Ajax, and this is episode 8 of the Golden Age of Broscience podcast. I have a very exceptional guest for you guys today that some of you know who he is, some might not. I'm going to give an introduction, and then I'll let him speak for himself. But Josh Bryant. Josh has been in the strength game, the coaching game, fitness game for decades. He's probably one of the most experienced. I know he is one of the most experienced coaches in the world, has coached world champions. He was a 600-pound bench presser as a young man, set records. One of his clients, one of his students, I should say, that you guys might know, is the current world record holder in the bench press, Julius Maddox, a regular strength. So the guy's coaching experience is just off the charts, right? There's no one else like him. And he's also written a huge number of, I don't even know how many articles at this point I have of yours, probably in the hundreds. He's written books, built the Hilt. He is the co-creator of the Jailhouse Strong series, which is fantastic. If you guys are looking for somebody to learn from, to act as an intellectual ghost mentor, there's nobody better than Josh. And he's been a huge influence on myself as a trainer and as a coach and just as a thinker. So all that said, Josh, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks. I mean, I'm really honored to be here, and I've always felt the same way about you because I know Ajax, we first met at the Elite FTS thing. You weren't really into powerlifting, but you were there learning and doing great. So, I mean, putting yourself in probably not the most familiar environment, and you thrive. So I'm honored to be here.
I appreciate that. Like we were saying, that was, I think, 2013, 14.
In there somewhere, yep.
Yeah. And then, at that time, I remember I think I had all your books up to that point. But just like to launch into a topic, I know your Jailhouse Strong series, I think that took off in a big way. And that became very popular in its own right. But what got you into this like coaching and then later on trying to teach and write? And so there's lots of personal trainers, obviously. There's lots of coaches, but not everyone puts their knowledge down on paper.
Yeah. So basically, I'm not like, I haven't done like construction and got into this. This is all I've ever done, all I've ever known. So I figured I'd go after it. That's where my passion is, because they say like markets change but your passion shouldn't, and that's where I'm at with that. So I figured the best way to reach more people, Salaria, the co-founder of ISSA, with Dr. Fred Hatfield, he used to always like write me and say, because I met him at the YMCA, I was doing close grip benches in 8th grade, and I remember he came over and said, you're going a little heavy, aren't you? I don't know if you should be doing that. I said, watch me, and I did it, and then he liked me after that. We kind of said, he used to send me messages saying like, the pen will make you immortal. Write it down, teach other people. That's what made Fred Hatfield immortal, he'd always say to me. So I took his advice and ran with it.
Wait, so I mean, just back up. You were at the YMCA, you were in the 8th grade, and Fred Hatfield was there?
No, his business partner, Salaria. And he was telling
Salaria
me,
was there. Okay.
Don't go too heavy on the close grip benches. I said, no, I can do this. Watch me. And really, I mean, because my dad started taking me to the YMCA with him to play racquetball when I was 5. I could either watch him play racquetball or I could sneak in the weight room. I'd sneak in the weight room, and looking back on it, no one had a problem with it. They thought it was kind of cool a kid was in there. So It was a different era, and the like, dudes that worked drywall all day, smoke a pack of cigarettes before they come in, then in jeans rep 5 plates in the deadlift. So that's the kind of people I was around. And so I was used to going heavy, and that was a standard. And so at a real young age I was really strong because that's the only people I'd ever been around, training wise.
What was the like? This was I don't know exactly how old you are. I know you're older than me. But like, what's this?
44.
Like the early 80s? 44. So it's like
Yep.
kind of like 1980s, 1990, early 1990s.
Yeah, exactly. So it was it's to say is like in gyms back then, obviously the cream of the crop is higher than the cream of the cream of the crop now is way higher. But like the mean or the median seemed a hell of a lot higher than like the standard was pretty high.
Well, no, that's a good observation, actually. Since I think like there's lots of things that have been like both gained and I think lost over the years of training.
Absolutely. A lot of things are better now, a lot of things are worse.
But like you go, I mean, we could like probably rant about that for a bit. Like if you go back to like 1990s, 1980s or earlier, I've heard this commentary from like a lot of other just like older coaches, mentors of mine, where like everyone trained a bit harder. Like the intensity at those kinds of gyms was just everyone was whatever, in like the upper 90%. Like you either went hard or you just like went home. You didn't show up. And then the training sort of productivity was greater, where maybe everybody overtrained, like maybe they did too many sets. But there's an expectation that any exercise you did, which was predominantly mostly free weights,
But
you were gonna, not maybe not max out, but you're gonna put some weight on. Like you're gonna do stuff from like whatever the 5 rep range or lower. Like you're gonna work up to some kind of sub maximal set. You're gonna push it, and that I don't know that you see as much anymore.
No, and the other observation I've made is there's less functional strength, if that makes sense. So, like, for example, there was a kid at 24 Hour Fitness. I have no idea who he was, but he couldn't have been over 18 or 19. Squatted like 600 deep, no knee wraps, no anything. And I saw him try to do with his buddies after a trap bar farmer's walk with 405, which should be pretty easy for him. I mean, there's nothing there. It's like because a lot of people that do train hard now have come up and just, so here's the thing, why some of the reason the numbers are higher is people have come up in just powerlifting or bodybuilding, which is good for that, obviously. But then at the same time, it's not like the drywall dude that like did all that shit. Then he would had some kind of functional, it didn't matter if he did like a functional strength training workout. He did functional stuff all day, or like random people like, okay, I didn't make the junior college football team or so I'll start lifting kind of thing. So that was another difference of like people had probably more of an athletic background. Now, a lot of people don't train as hard, and there's not as many people there's more people that come into just straight lifting.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, it's funny. I remember when my first like training job, I was as a personal trainer. This is 2010. Like I think I was in the San Francisco area. There's this guy. I always remembered him. He'd come in and he was like an HVAC technician. He's probably in his 50s, bald, but like just jacked. And he had kind of like that old school style where like he do heavy partials. He'd do like shrugs with 5 plates. He like he wasn't a big guy, but he was like deadlifting well to the 400s, like off blocks.
Yeah.
And like his density to his physique was so obvious. And at the same time, you just like watch him pick up anything heavy, and he could it didn't matter what the lift was, he could always do a respectful amount of weight.
There you go.
And anything he did, he could do it uneven, he could do it rough. Like his technique wasn't perfect, but it was there. And I think of that, and then like I'll see guys now like this sort of the biomechanics craze has taken over, and people get so obsessive over angles and like perfect control and range of motion, but they're doing like essentially like baby exercises, which are not really loadable long term. Just like stuff with cables, where I'm like, I don't know what that's doing. I'm not even sure how you make progress on that. And they get so into like feeling the muscle acutely. Not having this like a quad burn, but like I want to feel a contraction here on this part. I'm like, I don't know if that's going to do much for you, brother.
Yeah, I mean, even getting back to athleticism, there is like even people like Julius Maddox and stuff. He played basketball in high school, so they have some sort of athletic background. So I think even like long term, if all you care about lifting is you're going to have a higher work capacity and just general endurance, if you had that, and just movement capacity, if you had some sort of background outside of just straight lifting right off the bat. And yeah, I totally agree of like that's not loadable long term. I mean, also, compliance is a science. Do you really enjoy that? Or is that just to make a TikTok video of, okay, I put my, arm at this angle to do whatever for a lat pull down? Is that as enjoyable as like weighted chin-ups? I mean, it wouldn't be for me, but maybe it is for some people.
I don't know, maybe, but
I don't know.
I think that's one of those trends that will burn out in a couple of years, and everyone will rediscover for like the 8th time now in fitness history of like, if you want a big back, you do chins, pull downs, rows, throw in a dad of some kind. Like it doesn't really change that way.
Well, as bizarre as it's getting, like as you're honest with the golden era of Broscience, because it's going to go back to Broscience of like evidence bases, like the evidence is producing results rather than just like what certain people are saying.
Yeah, I mean that whenever I qualify Broscience, I always like make this distinction. Like it's not.
I remember we talked about Broscience off this podcast about a year ago. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember. But like it's just people have to realize that there's guys like yourself or myself as coaches. They've been training people for decades, or they're drawing upon a body of knowledge that goes back decades, 50, 60, 70 years. What works and like produces results and outcomes and makes people bigger, faster, stronger. We haven't figured that out entirely, but like we have a pretty good grasp on it.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the key, I think, is you take your knowledge from the past, but then you can't be like so close-minded, like nothing good's. Of course, there's lots of great things coming out. I think it's one of the best time to be alive to be into this stuff is right now, without a doubt. But that doesn't mean you can disregard what's worked in the past. Just, kind of cherry pick what makes sense, try it out, and don't just buy into every trend. You can kind of like integrate it. Okay, I need to do like zone 2 cardio. I'll try rucking. Okay, cool. Rucking feels good. It doesn't destroy my joints. I'm getting the work in, that kind of thing. Okay, I'll leave that in. Or something else happens, doesn't work out well. You kind of disregard it and move on.
Yeah, and rucking, it obviously has been blown up the past couple of years, but you've been doing that for a while, I think, from when I know you worked with like tactical athletes, military.
Right. And I did that before I knew it was a thing. So I would do that because I've always been a big proponent of conditioning, even when I was fat, powerlifting over 300. The day after squats, even like in high school and stuff or football games, I used to put on, I don't know how I had a weighted vest somehow. I don't know how I acquired that, but I did. I'd walk up and down stadiums, junior college when I lived in California, big, huge junior college stadium, one of the biggest ones in the state. I would just walk up and down it with that weighted vest for like 30 minutes. So I always did that. Then I got into training a lot of, tactical athletes, and before using that term rucking, it was just basically movement under load kind of thing, and had to really learn about that and that kind of thing. So I've been a huge proponent of it before it was a trend. And like anything else, like not just because something, usually when something happens, the masses adopt it. Probably not a great idea most of the time, but that happens to be one of the good ones.
Oh no, I mean most definitely. Like obviously it's taken off like big time. Last couple of years, you have like companies like Go Ruck, guys like Michael Easter. I don't know if you know who that is, but
I'm actually I work with Michael Easter. He's one of my clients.
Okay. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. No, okay. Michael. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, Michael,
great guy.
A whole bunch to make it popular.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think so. That's a good trend, like in certain trends can be good too. Like I don't agree with how a lot of the CrossFit gyms are programmed, but I think the idea of it's good, being multidimensional, unless you're like training for just straight powerlifting or just straight endurance. But if I'm in charge of one, I'm probably going to do it a lot differently than most people. But the idea is good, and it's brought more good to this whole fitness space than it hasn't,
Oh no, I agree. I mean, like the fitness industry, like a lot of people hated CrossFit or hated on it for a long time. Yeah, but like I said this years ago, CrossFit won. It got popular. It's not as popular as it once was, but it definitely got people in shape, if nothing else. But then also too, for like the more of the hardcore crowd, the bodybuilding crowd, or the strength scene, it got people using barbells.
A lot of good, yeah. I mean, a lot of good.
Yeah, I mean, if you compare gyms today, compared to like even like 2000, like it was a running joke years ago. Like a gym would have one squat rack or a squat stand, right? Or one power rack, if at all. Now you go to gyms, even big gyms, luxury gyms. You go to like an Equinox or a Lifetime, they'll have like an 8, 9, 10 rack.
Yeah, you're right, and that's a great point. So the gyms I started out in mostly Was in California at the time. Been in Texas for 20 years, but like before that, I was in California, in Tennessee, mostly in California. And what I know back then, a lot of the gyms I had were really good in that regard because what they did is they sort of separated the gym. So you had like one area that was like free weights, one area, the YMCA, for example, they called it the Nautilus rooms, all Nautilus equipment. Must have been a holdover from like before my time, like the Nautilus kind of gym craze. It was in the 70s,
Yeah,
but it
70s.
was all Nautilus machines. So like, whoever wanted to do that would go over there. Then like all the more hardcore dudes would be in the free weight area. And then another gym I was at, the same thing. They had like, they'd have like all bodybuilding machines on one side, they called it the power cage. It actually had like a fence and barbed wire and all this stuff around it. And then they had outside, and that was all powerlifting, like comp equipment, like your squat, like your stands, your deadlift bars, that kind of thing. Then the rest of it was like kind of like, free weights, but like heavy dumbbells and all that stuff. So I was pretty fortunate to not have to suffer through those sort of one squat rack gyms ever. I just always stayed away from them. But not say it like it wasn't by chance, because I've literally all my moves to end up here were for training, to train with different people and learn from different people. That's the only reason I ever, kind of moved. Then I just liked it here the most and stayed.
So, like, what's the timeline of like your biggest influences? You obviously you're at the YMCA, you're young,
Right.
you're looking heavy. What was like sort of the next gym after that contributed to your?
It's called Santa
development?
Barbara Gym Fitness, and like that was a legendary gym back in the day. It's not in business anymore. They had some just total freaking nut job that and not in a good way that bought it. Just a guy that might as well be running an ice cream stand or hot dog stand or whatever. He had no business running a gym. Just total idiot for the gym business, at least. Then he kind of ran into the ground, but that was a really good gym. They had like Ed Cohn had come in there to train when he was in Santa Barbara. Fred Hatfield, because ISSA was based out of Santa Barbara, so he'd be there multiple times a year training. So I got a job at 16. The defense coordinator of my high school worked out there, and his girlfriend was like the manager or something of it, and the owner like loved her, and the owner said I couldn't work there because I'm not 18. Then she said, well, if you don't let him work there, I'm gonna quit. He's perfect for the job. And he's like, okay, I'll let him work there. So I got shifts working during the week at night, then on the weekends from 1 to 7. So I was making money as like a 16-year-old. But more importantly, I was like, I should have been paying for all the knowledge I was getting. So I worked the front desk, and I got to interact with everybody. They have me come spot them. Like, I started like 16 years old. I literally started doing the programming for all the bouncers at this strip club called the Spearmint Rhino. I don't know if you've ever heard of that before. They're all over. There was one in Santa Barbara.
Oh no, I'm familiar.
Yeah. So I started programming for all the bouncers of the Rhino. So like my street credit immediately like jumped up. Like everybody's like, oh, this guy must know what he's talking about. So because they saw the results I was getting, and I was mentored by a guy named Steve Hall, but Steve wasn't real nice. He was nice to me, but like he wasn't friendly. And so people want to always know what he was doing. So I was like, it's almost like in the Catholic Church. He was like, God, I'm the priest you have to go through to get to God, right? So you have to go through me to talk to Steve. So like, hey, what are we doing here? And okay, Steve's doing this. So I got to like kind of get to interact with a lot of people that way. And then I started just working with them and coaching them at like 16 years old, and it kind of took off from there.
That's awesome. So how long were you there?
Sorry for the religious. I'm not sure we sacrilegious. I didn't know.
No, not in the slightest. But like, how many years were you there? You're
okay,
16
I was
years old
to 18.
18. Okay.
So from 18, then it just got, the gym kind of like lost its edge a little bit, and Steve started training at a gym in Oxnard. I was going away to play football in college at Moore Park Junior College, that kind of thing. So I wasn't there anymore. So then I kept training people in person, like randomly. And then my parents would let me use their garage. People would have equipment at their house, just random gyms, that kind of thing. Because personal training wasn't as big. So if it wasn't a hardcore gym, if it wasn't like a 24-hour fitness, you didn't really need to make arrangements with like, the owner or staff. They just be like, there's two guys in there working out, and one's just telling the other one what to do. And like, they don't need to know money. It's changing hands kind of thing. Yeah. So from there, I started training the Ode Hagen. You know who that is? The strongman?
Yeah, Ode Hagen, I met him at like, Jesus, man, it was like Perform Better 2010.
Yeah,
I mean, like, yeah, like 15 years ago. Anyway, you know who he is, but Ode was so you know Martin Lisi's?
yeah.
Martinez, yeah. So Martins, I trained. He was a coworker of mine. He was a personal trainer. We were training at the same gym in West Hollywood. Like, also, this is ever 15 years ago. Martins is great, but Martins, I remember when I met him, he's like, "Hey, I'm gonna." He hadn't started even strongman training yet. He's like, I'm gonna get the strongman like real soon. Like, I'm gonna do that."
That's
Like, "Oh,
cool.
that's cool, bro." I was like, "Yeah, yeah." And then, 2 years went by, and then he found Ode, and Ode became his mentor, right? And
See,
he's the one
I
that
was
basically
gone by
developed
that
him.
point, but I'm
Yeah,
aware of the story. I don't know Martine at all. I just know who he
yeah,
is.
uh-huh.
So I'll go with Ode.
Yeah.
Ode was of the company. I don't recall what it's called, and I know the logo if I saw it. They had green protein drinks and bars on the label, and they sold them at 24 Hour Fitness. It was like the only supplement company 24 Hour Fitness was allowed to sell in like 2003, 2004, whatever that would have been.
Yeah.
And so I started working with Ode at working out with him all the time. And my dad would drive down with me. It was about an hour away. We would always drive down there, and he'd come with me, and I'd work out. He'd watch and hang out, and I started getting to be friends with Ode too, than just rather than a workout partner. He's like, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I'm, training a couple people." He's like, "Do you want to get a lot of experience? Why do you go to 24 Hour Fitness?" So he's like, I was like, "I put an application, and they didn't call me back." He's like, "What?" So I don't know what he did, but they called me back like within an hour, and then they're like, "Yeah, do you want to start?" And I was like, it's pretty far away from my house in Camarillo, so it was about a good 40 minutes. And but he knew the guy there, so I started working there and training people there. And now, like, I knew that wasn't like a long-term career plan,
Mhm.
but what it did is like I knew I get the experience. That's why I still tell people now, if you want to get into training people, I don't care if the box gym pays you $10 an hour, do it, learn as long as it let you do what you want, get the experience and figure out, like, if you got to dig ditches on the side or something, do that to get more money. But like, that's a good way to get experience. And then you can go off on your own after that. And that's exactly what I did. So I started doing that. Um, Luckily I got interviewed by bodybuilding.com because at that time I was competing and doing really well. And so I had random people hit me up about training online. Then to me, online training was they'd send me an email. I'd make a thing on the computer, like type it out, like a written plan for them, send it to them snail mail, and that was that. And then, but that was like 2003, 2004. So then I started doing that a long time too. Is like I got into online training really early. From there, I moved to Tennessee and I started working at a really high end place. The guy his name is Jeff Bergholz, and he was really good. He's in Nashville. He still has a gym there. It's called Takes Two Fitness. He was really good on like teaching the business side. And
Mm.
like, if you like, he'd feed me clients and he wasn't greedy about it. I mean, he'd give me like a fair split and all that kind of stuff and like teach me stuff. I really liked him. I learned a lot from him on like the business. I just watched not he was actually a Mr. Tennessee a good bodybuilder back in the day before that. It's like 2005, so he must have been the 80s sometime. But he'd be really good on the business side of like how to deal with, like, he had people coming in there, and I kind of learned how to like act different because I'd only been in like 24 hour fitnesses or like really hardcore gyms. So it was good to kind of get that finesse on how to deal with certain people, learn, to kind of meet people where they're at. Before that, it was more of like, hey, we're doing this. And like, if you're a pussy, if you don't do it. But then I got with Jeff and kind of learned how to deal with normal people really fast, really well. And before I knew it, I had no more business I knew what to do with by just getting people good results and acting like a normal person instead of a barbarian like previously. And that was all going really well. I was training myself with a guy named Matt Poe. He's a top speed coach at the time with like worked with the Tennessee Titans and those people. We were working out together, training. I was also training at Vanderbilt University. A guy named John Sisk was a strength coach. Knew the baseball coach there. They let me train there. So it was really good, but it wasn't like the atmosphere I was looking for. And since if I really want to go next level, so I moved to Texas to train at Metroflex.
Mm.
And my plan was literally hooked up with a supplement company. They were going to pay me, a small amount, but monthly. They got like one or two checks. They quit paying. I quit working with them. But my plan was I'm going to do as little as possible. My dad told me, he says, just go for it. He's like, just live on as little as you can and just go for it. I'm like, all right, I'm going to do that. That's good advice. And they flaked out. So then I started training more and more people here. And like it's mostly high school football. It gone from like, you know, the rich and well-to-do in Nashville to like mostly high school football players. They were kicking ass. I'd love going to their games. I'd love seeing them dominate. I'm like, you know, even though I'm setting records, kicking ass, I really like seeing that more than myself. So I'm only going to go all in on this. And before I knew it, again, I had like so much business. It was going great. And then from there, I think a lot of people like Johnny Jackson and stuff are thinking, okay, if this guy can, you know, get random high school kids to like deadlift or squat X amount, what can he do for me? Then I got the opportunity. If you're ready for the opportunity, you run with it. You know, all things are possible, and that's what I did. And from there, it kind of snowballed and compounded, and that's where I'm at from here. You know, so then it get into more strength athletes, primarily, still the football, and some regular people during the day. I started training the athletic director's kid of a school here called Kennedale, and it was like one of the top programs. I think they'd be like the same classification as Liberty Hill, because I'm positive at the time that was somebody they talked about a lot. And they, anyways, would be they were like, he's like, I love the results. You know, you're getting my son. Like, why don't we make you a full-time strength and conditioning coach here at the high school? So that was kind of not a normal thing for a high school back then in Texas. We were one of the first, and it was awesome. We did great, won state in multiple sports, all that stuff. The only bad part was like in the classroom. I mean, they gave me easy classes. They were good to me, but I just couldn't stand being in the damn classroom. It's like, I'm not, I'm gonna have a master's degree, but I hate academics. Just not my thing. And I'm like, I can't be doing this bullshit of like, you know, of like, I just couldn't, you know, like, of like, hey, one teacher, like, you know, say, hey, do you call so-and-so's mom? I'm like, no, I'm not doing that shit. Like, I'm here for like strength conditioning. Like, you know, go, you don't like it, go turn me into superintendent kind of thing, because they know why I'm here. But then finally, you know, it's just like, I can't be dealing with all this crap. And then, so after 3 years, I finally to leave. And plus my business at Metroflex, I was making more money than I was at the high school. I was like a full-time teacher with a coaching stipend, but I was doing so well at Metroflex, I was making more money there than there. So I'm like, why in the hell am I going to stay? Again, that's another piece of advice. I say, once you can like outdo your income and your side hustle, that needs to become the full-time hustle. So there's always been strength and conditioning of some sort. So then I went into Metroflex, started doing really well there. And at about that time, my son was born. You know, after a while, you know, I say about that time, a few years later. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go primarily online at this point, so I can really focus on my family and like more on my, you know, on when you're doing stuff online. It's like if you have to get someone on a workout back in 24 hours, and like the kid's taking a nap or something, then that's what you do. You know, it's not that big of a deal if you're willing to work. So that's what I did for a long time at Metroflex, though. No joke. I went a couple of years when I wrote Built to the Hilt and at Metroflex. I really don't remember very much except him being born and doing some stuff with him. Like it was like 13 hours a day, plus online training, plus working out. The only time I left, it was I would leave to go to LA Fitness just to get out of the heat. And I wasn't training as hard then. Just so I didn't really want to, like, I like to set an example for people. So I'm not putting in the at work I was before or I am now. So I don't want to show them and be like, all right, I'm asking you to do this, but I'm really doing this kind of thing. So I kind of go over to LA Fitness. It was like just like a break in the day. I went there for a few years. I don't think I've ever talked to a human being in there ever. Just did my thing real quick, left, and would eat at the same barbecue place, come right back to Metroflex. And I mean, I'd eat that barbecue place in like, you know, 10 minutes or whatever and go back into the heat at Metroflex. And then my son was born. I went primarily online, but still work with people, but in person. But now, so then went from more strength athletes to more bodybuilders. A lot of bodybuilders. I say more bodybuilders, a more bodybuilding heavy population than it was before. And then I started getting lots. So then I started like, you know what? I'm going to get into more hardcore training because you know, I'm heavier and I want to get like in better shape for my kids and all that kind of stuff. And there's no reason to carry around as much body weight. So I'm going to start training more like a tactical athlete. And I just started posting. I didn't even post stuff online, just my Instagram stories. And then people just kept writing me, like military and all these people of, oh, I like what you're doing. It looks functional. So then that niche kind of formed that way. By that, it wasn't sought after. You know what I mean? So I always say, like, you pursue your passion and good things happen. The market's going to change at some point. Like, luckily for me, when COVID hit, like, it was already a trend of body weight and, you know, no equipment needed or minimal equipment. So that really, happened. But like you see, like other people, like I know John Meadows, one of your mentors, right? He
Mhm.
still pivoted. He did like band. I remember he did like a bodybuilding band YouTube video. Like so, there's always like things you can do. But I've been fortunate. I'd say it's definitely gonna be a God thing or something to be in the right place at the right time a number of times. But I think it comes when you're also like you kind of take care of the natural, and the supernatural will take care of you too if you do the right things. Eventually, it kind of works out.
Yeah, there's an element of I will say it like there's an element of like divine timing, God's timing
Yeah,
that you can never account for it. Like you can't force things to be given to you, obviously. But if you're courageous, you have integrity, and you recognize opportunities like you always have, obviously, like as they arise, like, hey, someone is offering to train me, coach me, put me in a different environment that I know will be conducive to my growth.
right.
Take it. Like just take it. Don't deliberate and think about is this the right decision? Like anything, yeah, I like my son's only 3, but like I'm trying to encourage that attitude. Like anything that forces you to grow is going to be good for you long term. Just that basic.
It's that basic because I skipped over one step in there. So Salaria also told me about strength conditioning. He's like, yeah, you can get like a paid internship. If I was you, what I'd do, he's like, figure out a way to make some money, go down to UCLA, walk in there unannounced. You're not going to tell anybody you're coming. Go in there like proud, look, where somebody makes you look big, jacked. Walk in there to head strength coach. You walk straight up to him and said, my name is Josh Bryant. Salaria told me I should come down and talk to you. I want to come down and volunteer to help you guys. And he's like, don't worry about like internships or what it's called. Just do it. And so I walked in. It was on a Friday. The guy's like, all right, be here at Monday at 5:30. That's literally all he said. He's like, perfect. I'm really excited about this. Be here Monday at 5:30. And just ran with it. So I could have gotten, who this guy is? Doc Crease. Have you ever heard of him?
Doc Crease.
Yeah, he was a strength conditioning coach of the year a couple times for the NCAA. And
Okay.
that like I could have gone with some crappy like, all right, I'm going to like whoever the hell was at Utah State. I'm not saying I got Utah. I don't even know who it was. I'm not trying to make fun of somebody, but some
Yeah.
random place. I go $800 a month and like an apartment and like a dining commons card or some shit, and learn nothing, or gone to the best and just had to suffer a little bit. But I got so much more from it. That's why I'm sure you get the same thing of like it can be annoying when somebody like, especially it's one thing if like somebody's out of it and they say, hey, can you help me out here and give them some free advice? Sure. But like it's like I'm looking to get a strength conditioning, blah blah blah, but then once you tell them like how much it's going to cost, it's like, well, I don't want, so you want me to help you make money so you can make money, but you're not going to pay me anything, even though I've had to sacrifice moves, hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not more, to do all this. Certainly more than that, probably, if you add it up over all these years.
Yeah, no, I tell younger guys that since fitness, it's funny now, like things that didn't exist for you or were just starting to exist, later on after I got into it. But like the social media universe, you can become an influencer now. You can never train anyone. You can never, you have no body of work at all. There's no clients, there's no coaching, there's nothing.
Yeah.
But if you can train yourself and you make it look cool, like now you have a following and you have some level of perceived credibility. But like so many of these guys that want to do that, like they don't want to be they don't want to be teachers. Like there's very few people still to this day, I think, like actually want to be teachers of physical development. They just want to be popular.
That's true.
On Instagram.
And he's got the base, though, is not there, though. So what they got to worry about then? Okay, I'm all for anybody that if you look good and you can get on there and make some money, I'm truly happy for you. You're gonna pump it back to the American economy, all good stuff. We're all gonna benefit somehow, probably some way. Bring awareness to a point, but they got to worry about themselves then, because is somebody cooler going to come along, or is this going to go to switch back to like you need certain credentials to earn a living at this?
Mm-hmm.
Because what if like you have 1 million followers on TikTok and TikTok shuts off? Probably not good for you, right? Where like you or I, if they shut off these social media sites, yeah, we'd have to deal with a pain in the ass, but we could still make it where they can't,
Oh, it's a real skill set. Yeah, it's also not dependent upon us playing a popularity game. Like we're not posting content. Like I got to stay popular. I got to be in the algorithm, so people notice me for just
right.
whatever nonsense.
Yeah, I think it's stay relevant. And I think you've done a good job of that. Of like, of sort of like not changing who you are, but you kind of change with your phase in life. Okay, I got a kid now. I'm like kind of posting about dad. It's not like you're seeing an opportunity and just jumping on to try to make a buck. That's where you're at in life. So if you didn't do that, you're not being yourself anyways.
Yeah, you have to have congruence.
Right.
But I was going to ask you. You mentioned back in the conversation, you were competing. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. You competed both in powerlifting and in bodybuilding.
I've dieted down for bodybuilding. I've never done any shows.
Okay. But then powerlifting, I know you had some success in, obviously.
Yep, that and strongman, but I've never competed in bodybuilding.
Well, in powerlifting, strongman, what was kind of like your approximate sort of competition timeline?
Right. So I really got out of it in like 2006, pretty young. And then I did one more deadlift meet in 2009. I kind of wanted to show some clients I could still do it. And I came back and hit a PR deadlift at that time. So that was the last meet I did. But the last time I was only like, I honestly, I like that was, everything worked out, but I could see where there was problems of how I kept competing because I was still working at the school and stuff. And I'm just thinking like, I don't want to, do this or that and like walk over here and because I would be fresh from my deadlift for all that kind of crap. So I could see where the mindset would be like the competing mindset's different. Like, so I tell people it's not like you're training less hard now. You're not training for a competition. So the mindset's different. Like, I guess it's what you do outside the gym. That's a big difference of like how you use your time and how you act towards people. Like I've never been mean to anybody, but at the same time, like, they were just kind of like you compete. It's almost like you're dealing with silhouettes in public. You're just like nice, smile, whatever, get out of the way. I gotta, kind of focus on the next workout versus like, see like that's a child of God or something. It's like more like that's a silhouette that's kind of like I'll be friendly and nice because you're supposed to, but all that matters is a workout later today. Like I know people are good parents that compete. I would not be one of those people.
Yeah, that's a hard thing to split your energies for. Yeah, like I think I'd probably like a mutual friend of ours. You know, Mark Lobliner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I was like, I think you probably met John Mills at some point, but yeah, both of them have talked about that at various points where like you're trying to be present for your kids, right? You're trying to be present for your wife. Like you just your energy has to go other places besides the competition. Like it's just if you're going to compete at all. And then it's a lot to mentally manage because then you're switching out from like competition ideally is like monomaniacal.
Yeah.
I think for most people, it's like you don't want to think about anything else.
Yeah, exactly. That's how
like
it was.
a competitive athlete mindset. But then if you have to think about whatever your wife and kids or your job, right? Like how many guys have you know in powerlifting that sort of work like a bare minimum job just so they can focus on competing?
What's Dave Tate say? The powerlifters and bodybuilders make the worst employees. Quoting him from that seminar we were at.
Yeah, exactly, right. And then I'm always amazed at people. There are those guys that can do it all. I'm like, that's.
I've seen guys do it all, and they're great at all of it. I'm just not one of those people. So you have to have some self-awareness of where you fall in that.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, so for me, that's why I don't do like a lot of my own training now. I still go heavy in some stuff. Like I'll use different indicators of strength and like a squat or deadlift or bench press, just because I kind of look at that chapter as being closed. I'm not, because I know there's a lot of powerlifters kind of hang on and kind of limp out there and like, try to still squat. And it's like, to partial depth and like resting 10 minutes between sets, but it's getting lighter and lighter. So there's really not much benefit to it at all besides causing them pain and further problems.
So how has your training changed over the years? I mean, obviously you have guys that compete in powerlifting. And like this always gets argued about, like, does powerlifting break your body down, or is it more so just you're just training really hard for a long period of time, and that's where it breaks down, or is it really like is it this individual? Some guys are more resilient than others. Like, how do you think about that?
I think it's a lot of it's just you're training harder. So like I think any modality you push to an extreme, you're gonna have problems. So it doesn't matter what it is. Once you introduce competition, it changes things. Even if it's, I mean, does the dude that runs around your neighborhood have problems, or is the person like going for a world record in the marathon kind of thing? So that you have to look at the extreme of competition. I think that's the biggest driver, more than the modality within reason. Like if you're doing like croquet or something, you're probably okay. But like most things, it's going to be like pushing it, which causes the problem probably, I would say, more than the actual activity. Obviously, some are going to be worse than others. But I've seen a lot of people that like are powerlifting for decades that like in their 50s and stuff. They've been doing it forever, and they're still hitting PRs, but they never really put the foot to the gas.
Mm.
And that's great if that's what you want to do. Like I was more like, let's do this all in, move on to something else.
Yeah, there's a chapter of life.
Chapter of life. And
Yeah.
that's why I think coach people well on it, because I understand we're at different phases. I can talk to you and say, all right, besides the knowledge of actual training, like where are you at on this? Okay, like, my kid has an out of town baseball tournament that comes before, deadlifts. Okay. Or like, this is life. I'll do anything to get the extra 1%. Because I've been in both spots,
Yeah, you have like you can, whether you call it, I want to call it like sympathy or empathy, compassion, or just understanding the mindset. Like you can understand both positions.
I think I could already before it happened, because that's why I didn't have like kids say earlier, just because I kind of knew that would, I would change at that point, and I wasn't ready to change yet.
That's a good observation. So you're training with clients now. At this point, it's been like what, like about like 30 years essentially, almost.
I would say, yeah, I mean, closer to 30 than 20. So what do you say, 16 to 44, so 28? Yeah, closer to 30 than 20.
Yeah, like so. Like, how has your philosophy changed? Like, and how's it not from like year 1 to year 28?
Yeah, so I would say one thing that's definitely changed is I've always kind of before would view more like, even like built to the hilt, would be viewing more of the core lifts of as like the base, where I do think people need strength indicators as a base, but it doesn't have to be, necessarily like the big three. That's obviously an option on the table, but it's not the option for everybody. So like I would build, be more open to, like different, like basically realizing everything's a tool. I have it in my box. What's the best tool for the job versus we're starting off with powerlifting and then we're going to branch out from there. Like, okay, before, what do you do differently? Okay, well, we're going to do like, say, squatting or something like a powerlifter, but then, if you play football, more specific, and viewing these tools as tools versus like powerlifting is the base, and we'll like kind of touch it up a little bit. Then also, I would say I was more paranoid before about any kind of conditioning and strength. Obviously, I don't think if you're trying to bench 600, going for 4-minute and 30-second miles, probably not the wisest thing, but like, more open to like adding in more conditioning and things like that. Just trying to build like a higher work capacity, where I think before, if someone was geared towards strength, I was really like, you don't do shit outside the gym. You're just like a vegetable, except when you're at the gym, kind of thing.
Yeah, I remember years ago reading an article by, I think, Dan John. It was Dan John, where he was making the commentary like the biggest, strongest guys he ever knew growing up. Like they trained really hard, they'd lift heavy, all that, and then they were just like snails once they left the gym.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they walked to the fridge, they'd walk to the couch, they walked to the car. Like they didn't do much else.
Yeah, and see that was kind of conflicting for me, because I either come from like, I always did other stuff, like I always did extra conditioning myself and stuff, but I guess I should have done that for other people early on, and I didn't. And I think and then like a lot more of the movement based stuff of like, okay, versus like, but not getting goofy with it, like, we're gonna like drag sleds and things like that versus like more stationary stuff. I think that's changed a lot too.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember like probably a decade ago, 8 years ago, sleds were really popular. Remember, Prowler, obviously, and they work great.
Yeah,
like undeniably. And then they just, I don't know whether it was maybe they saturated the market or it's just, it was like, their window of time, but like you don't hear them talk about much anymore.
you do it, yeah. I mean, because you can really do anything with them, right? Like, I mean, I just was out at Mark Bell's and we were doing like all sorts of just different. He's like, do you want to do, before the video, do you want to do the sled to warm up? I didn't realize we were going to work out at the time. I thought we were going to do it later in the day, but I said, sure. And we did like all sorts of, jiu-jitsu guy came, we're doing all sorts of weird drills with the sled, and it's very low impact for a huge return. So that's unfortunately a good trend that sort of has gone away a little bit. Because if you look at like when, like what was about 10 years ago, 24-hour fitness, your box gyms, they had like sort of bastardized CrossFit, for lack of a better term. You know, they did certain racks of CrossFit. It was like a wannabe CrossFit. How they had the monkey bars and all that. Then about 9 years ago, maybe they started changing to turf. But it's like those commercial gyms a lot of times catch things on the end, so they were kind of catching the turfs on the end of it of when it's not popular because they're usually behind what's actually happening in the trenches.
Yeah, I mean, I remember telling 24-Hour Fitness when I worked there, like 2010. I was trying to tell the management, like, you guys should really, since CrossFit was blowing up, I'm like, you guys should, like, we should create some functional training areas. We should do this. We should do that. And nobody listened, obviously. It's like, what are you talking about?
I was not in those gyms at that time period at all. Yeah. Only at Metroflex. I probably went like 5 years without going to those kind of gyms. What was it like then?
I mean, it's funny. 24-hour at least. I can't speak for every change gym. I worked out.
They're a good guideline. No, they're big. I mean, that's a fair.
Yeah, they have a lot of great equipment. Like, that's the thing. Like, why do people go to big box gyms? Awesome equipment, right? You got barbells. You got free weights.
Hell yeah.
It's usually high quality stuff. You got big range of machines. Some machines can be awesome. But like the setup took so long to change. Where like it wasn't probably until like the late 2010s where they still followed like almost like the 1970s, 80s format of like, okay, you go in, there's a cardio area, there was a machine area, there was a free weight area, and then they had some racks. And then it wasn't until maybe 2014, 15 that's like, hey, let's make like a functional area with some.
Yeah, because that's how it was in 2004. Exactly what you just described.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like 2006, 15. So we moved to South Lake. Like I said, it's 2016. So that'd be the first time I was really in commercial gyms again. Because I trained mostly at the house, but I'd go there for like certain machines because it's further away from Metroflex. And I noticed they had that CrossFit, the monkey bars, all that stuff. And literally they had more racks than you could there was never a time when all the racks were in use. And that's before a couple other gyms opened. It was way more people in the gym, period. They probably had 15, 16 different racks. And then all of a sudden one day they shut the gym down for a couple of days and that was all gone. They put turf in. Huh. But the turf's kind of sucks too, though, because people, a lot of people just park their ass there and do a whole bunch of nothing, like scroll on their phone and pretend like they're stretching, where that could be used for medicine ball throws, sprint get-offs, and productive things.
Yeah, the turf has been a weird trend because most gyms, unless it's a huge square footage area,
yeah,
they'll put in turf, but it's like 15 yards of turf, right? Like it's not really big enough you can't really do sprints on it. It's just not long enough. It's too short maybe to push a sled. You can kind of do battle ropes, maybe, but yeah, it just is there, and then everyone just uses it to foam roll.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, totally. And the thing is, yeah, I mean, I guess they really don't have. I guess they can make it 20 or so, but the way it's set up, there wouldn't be any way to do it any further. I mean, yeah, I mean, again, all these complaining though, at the end of the day, that's a positive direction for the most part because they do have some sleds in there, and it's like a tank sled. I don't know how by torque. I don't know how high that goes. Because I really like that sled when I use it with Mark Bell, but I'm not sure how high the resistance goes up because we're going fairly light and further. Have you tried one of those before?
Yeah, they're interesting. I guess they're designed to be like a heavy sled, right? You push it, it's a lot of friction.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not, you can't really move it quickly. I mean, you can, but you can honestly, you compare it to a prowler, right? You can load a prowler up with weight. You can just throw yourself into it.
Right.
It gives you the right kind of resistance where you can kind of fly on it, go fast, or kind of go slow, and it feels good. It's a great workout. The torque sled, you can tell it's just the friction of trying to scrape it against the ground. It's not quite the same feeling.
It's not. So again, I'd like to try it with some heavier stuff because I'm speaking from ignorance on that. But for the lighter stuff we were doing, it was really good.
Yeah.
If you want to do more conditioning, but more of an aerobic kind of thing than a interval, I'm going to do prowler, 30 yards, rest 30 seconds, and that sort of thing, go all out. It wouldn't be for that. I don't know if I haven't tried. You said, yeah, I believe you, so I haven't tried it yet. But I know for the prowler and stuff, we use that a ton down at Metroflex in the parking lot right there. Use it all the time. I used to have like conditioning stuff for football and stuff. I'd have it to the position down to where they should be at, to like, like you got to do 12 with 30-second break, for alignments like 12 yards under this time. And I had it down to a freaking science because we use it all the time.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. How did you come up with those like kinds of conditioning standards? Since obviously you couldn't like run VO2 max testing on everyone.
I would just look at colleges are doing and stuff and time stuff myself and figure it out. Like, for example, I work with the kids here. I have a 6th grader and a 4th grader, so I did the conditioning for their teams, and I just basically found some stuff of what colleges do and like kind of experiment on the kids and then adapt it, because for them I didn't know. So I thought a good test, for example, was a 30-yard shuttle for alignment. You go 15 yards, touch the line, run back 15 yards. For skill players at that age, like 40 yards, they go 20 and back. Found the time, and I would give the person credit because I don't remember who wrote it. It was on Elite FTS. It was somebody like it was a good strength coach at one of the more Ivy League type of schools, but it was very well thought out and had good rationale of like how like the faster kids still have to decelerate, and like there's all this good rationale of why it made sense. So I'm okay, if like alignment in college is getting it, 7.5 seconds. So we're gonna get this, try the 4th graders out like 9.5 seconds, see where that's at. And like, I mean, because they're not seeing what I'm timing and stuff, so they don't really know. I'd say, all right, we gotta get like 9.5 seconds. And luckily, enough experience in the field on making these standards, I'm pretty good at doing it. So there hasn't been any hiccups, But yeah, so like a lot of that, but with it at Metroflex and stuff, a lot of it was just reading and then experimenting and then looking at what was actually happening. Then the results are getting, the kids come into the football in good shape and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, that's all.
A lot of stuff was weird there because like a lot of kids would lie too. They would say like that, hey, we can't really do it. The parents, they'd lie to their parents, they'd all lie to me and say, hey, we've been running at school. And like we really can't, you just need to only focus on lifting because they don't want to run at all. And I'm thinking, okay, you're here to get better. So obviously you wouldn't lie about this. Come to find out they do, it's like, oh, I've decreased my 40 time like 0.3 of a second in the last 12 weeks. I haven't ran once. I'm like, what? You told me? Oh, I lied to you. Okay. Well, that showed me the strength to body weight ratio stuff of like how important the strength to body weight ratio is an indicator of speed. Up to like I always say up to like a mid-level high school track sprinter, strength to body weight ratio is very, very, very important indicator for speed. Now you start getting to like the elite Olympic levels, not so much, but up until like mid 100 range, it's a huge indicator.
Interesting. So I mean, like how, like obviously genetics are real, and not everyone has like elite genetics.
Yeah.
But like how like sort of, it's like, I'll try to phrase this correctly. How improvable is someone's baseline? Can you go from like okay to good, good to very
on
good?
speed?
Like, yeah.
I've had somebody. He's a Green Beret right now. He's gone from below average to great. So actually, he's the one that kind of changed my outlook on that because honestly, most of the people that I worked with at Metroflex were kids. They're like the better kids. It's not usually like I'm like, on the sideline, never been in the game. It's like, okay, I'm on JV. I'm a little too small. I want to get into varsity and I'm starting on JV. So they're probably better genetics baseline. So a lot of people going from so-called average to good to great, right? Where I've seen a couple people now that I've gone below average. Because the example I give of him is we're doing tempo runs. So if someone listening doesn't know what a tempo run is, it's basically the way I'll define it is you're running. In this case, it's not like a distance tempo run, it's a sprinting one like Charlie Francis uses. You're basically running with sprint mechanics at a submaximal speed, so like 70% or so. So I told this guy had been like killing the conditioning tests and said he had an athletic background, was playing rugby. I'm like, all right, we'll go 15 seconds for 100 yards. That's not real fast. I mean, but he's like, I didn't get any of the times. I'm like, hold on. Is this because of speed or because you were not conditioning? Your conditioning is really good. He's like, oh, it was just too fast. I'm like, what the hell? You can't do 15 seconds for 100 yards? And, and like couldn't do anything like that hardly. And then like, he, ran a 4.7 or so at 40 at the bobsled thing, so like, that's a pretty elite level of speed for not like a non-track runner or Division I football players. So like it just shows that you went from like really slow to really fast. And so that's when he's in college to like early 30s. So
that's impressive.
that changed a lot of how I looked at it, because like I don't think like you're gonna make, you know, a poodle into a pit bull, but like, you know, you might be able to make a golden retriever into I guess like a Doberman Pinscher. You know, there's some work to be done for sure. Like it is, you know, basically genetics deal the cards, and your, you know, how you train is going to deal you know, how you play the hand, and that's going to determine the outcome. So I think it's a lot more we can do than we think.
Yeah, that's one of those questions. Like everyone, yeah, every good coach is always just like, you're always kind of assessing that, like trying to think through it. Since, yeah, I think if you train for long enough, at some point you'll train every kind of archetype of client where you have those people that are gifted, and you do anything with them, it works. It's like you think you're great. Then you have the people that they're hard gainers, but they don't need much training to get an adaptation. Okay, then you have the people that are hard gainers and they need more training to get like, you know, adaptation happening.
Well, what do you say? The hard graders don't need much. That's going to be the most difficult to deal with, because you know, usually it's like, okay, if you're low IQ and you want to become a doctor, well, you better hit the damn books and you better hit them hard all the time, right? Where if somebody is genetically at a disadvantage, but they don't have a high work capacity, because most of the time, in my experience, people with more fast twitch muscle fibers are faster gainers, period. Like they just got it for anything like bodybuilding, powerlifting, sprinting, obviously sprinting, but like that's just going to be like they walk by the weight room, they grow. But usually the more endurance types, the advantage typically is they're able to do more, because they don't have there's something like neurologically, they can't turn it on as enough, so they don't take as much to recover from. Like they're not as neurologically efficiently put together as a machine that can turn everything on at once. So the advantage there is you can train more often, you can do more higher intensities, because it's just not as taxing on the system overall. Where I feel like once I've dealt with people, and so that's the kind of stereotype, but I've definitely dealt with people that are slow gainers, quote unquote, but then they're like you said, they don't need very much drive and adaptation. That's the one where the puzzle gets real tricky, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's like the guys who are, let's say, hard gainers, but they need to like kind of train more. Like they always have those guys where they're never going to be like maximally gifted. They're not going to be a 400-pound bencher. They're not going to be super strong that way, right? But they can do a lot of work. It's like, okay, you're going to need a higher volume. It's going to be like more very sub-maximal training. But you do this long enough, like you'll get there to change your body, and you know, maybe you end up having like a pretty good physique. But then you always have those weird ones where it's like, okay, like you kind of have low work capacity, or like you have low recoverability. So like you overtrain easily, and then you can't handle that much training just to begin with. So it becomes this, you have to like, you know, figure out like, okay, it's going to be maybe like low volume, moderate intensity, moderate frequency that you really have to balance out. And then then you have those guys too, like their recovery, they can just sleep and eat whatever and they're fine. Just, you know, obviously nutrition makes a big difference. Like you can just sleep and eat pizza and you're good.
Yeah.
And then you have the guys where it's like you have to sleep 8 hours, you have to be dialed in with everything. Your nutrition has to be in point. And then if you do all of that, all the lifestyle stuff, all the optimization, then you'll grow a little bit.
Yeah, I've noticed that even with kids, like, so example being like younger kids. So, because I hadn't really worked with kids before, like that young, it was always like like junior high and above, is like the more focused, determined, but genetically gifted athletes, they get sore. The other ones don't. Like if you make your like faster kids that are like really focused and love it, like sprint hard, they actually get sore in their hamstrings the next day, where like the average 10 or 12-year-old can't. They're not even capable of making themselves sore unless you made them, you know, do a 12-mile hike or something. So there's that part of it too. I think a lot of it comes on to what you can turn on. And, you know, so as you grow, if you're a biological organism, you change over time, that should change over your training career. Okay, well, you've been training for 10 years, you're more neurologically efficient now, so you may not be able to do as much volume as you could early on, just because you're more efficiently put together as a machine.
Yeah, but Buddy Morris talked about that. I know you know Buddy, but
Of course. Yeah.
yeah, no, he really talks. I mean, he trains he's been trained like the cream of the crop, right? He's
Right.
been a strength coach for NFL teams for decades, or D1 colleges. But he said that like the most explosive, fastest, just all around athletic guys, once they get past that like initial adaptation phase of like they're beating everybody up until they get into maybe college, and then they're around like their peers, right? So now there's more competition. But their like initial phase is like, okay, they're good at everything. They'll grow quickly. They get faster. But then they get like very high. They're high performing, right? Like these guys, everyone's running, whatever, 4.4, 4.5, 4.6. They're all fast. They're all strong. They're all jumping high. And I think I don't want to misquote him, but like he said in so many words, like they actually become kind of fragile because their output's so high that they can overtrain, or they're moving so quickly at anything. There's just more risk for them to hurt themselves.
Right, and that's what so that's hopefully what would happen at like a Division I level is there would be on the strength coach part some adjustments made, because you're exactly right. Like if you like tell a crappy D3 tailback to run his hardest every practice, you probably don't have much of a problem. They need to get better. Where you have some thoroughbred like genetic freak that's like willing to go hard, that takes a lot out of them. You know what I mean? That's going to take more out of them. Like I remember I used to think that because I was always fast, when people talk about sprinting, it seemed like it took more out of me than the other people, but I was a lot faster than them too. Like, now granted, some of it was real heavy, like doing powerlifting stuff, but I always did sprints and I was always really fast. But I think it wasn't just being, because obviously aerobic capacity even is indirectly correlated because it makes you regenerate faster between being set sprints, whatever. But there's that part of it. But then I think a lot of it is like when you're neurologically like that, it's just harder on you. Where if you want to go so then I noticed that when I get like tempo runs with people, I could smoke them because if it's like 15-second 100, that's a low enough percentage of my threshold that I can do that. And it's not that fatiguing. Just how if you can deadlift 800 and you want to have me move 20-pound boxes all day, I may not be in great shape, but it ain't gonna be a problem because it's such a low percentage of my capacity. Just how like running, your endurance by default increases if you're fast. If you run 20 miles per hour, jogging at 6 miles per hour is 30% of your maximum speed. If you run 10 miles per hour, you may have a great VO2 max, but you're at 6 miles, 60%. Different ballgame.
Yeah, I mean that's something I always try and translate for like average Joes, right? It's like, why do we want you to get stronger? Like, muscle function, all this stuff, but like as you age, you're not going to be at your peak when you're 60, 70, 80. Like just regardless of regardless of your hormones being dialed in, whatever you're taking, regardless, like aging will happen. But if you can get your maximal absolute strength levels up fairly high, relative perspective to your ability, talent, all that.
Sure.
And then you get older, like life's easier. Anything that's strength based that requires muscular contraction is way easier. Anything that requires cardiovascular exertion is way easier. If you can peak that out when you're 30s or 40s, you're going to have a really big pyramid to chip away at in your 50s, 60s, 70s, and beyond.
Right, because you start rolling downhill, if you're at the top of the mountain, it's going to take a lot longer to get to the bottom, for sure. Hello?
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. I cut out for a second.
Oh, I can hear you.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so with your training now, since I watch it kind of Instagram, obviously you do a lot of rucking. I know you do like the hill sprints. What are your like major strength indicators for yourself now? Is like trap bar, some sort of squat?
I'll change them up. So right now I've been doing like step ups onto it's with like essentially a ricksaw kind of thing. It's like a trap bar kind of farmer's walk contraption, excuse me. And that's what I do. I'll step up onto like this 4-inch box. So that's heavy. So I'll change them up, or I might do like lunges or something like that. I just don't do the big three. Sometimes I'll do a wheelbarrow. Sometimes I'll do a chain yoke. So I'll focus on one, move on to the next kind of thing, but then keep all the bodybuilding accessories in there at like 24-hour fitness to keep overall to prevent imbalances and keep some muscle hypertrophy. But I actually grow pretty easy. So like if I was in bodybuild, my problem would be like cutting down fat, not like getting big. I can put on muscle really easily. To me, it's harder to stay lean.
Yeah, I mean, you also have obviously a great strength base that you've built over the years. So,
right. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, what does your kind of like accessory, like hypertrophy work look like? Is it moderate, high reps? Is it underlying periodization? How do you set that up?
So right now I'm more of an endurance phase. So I'm going into lower volume. Like for example, I did today was do more leg focus. So I've been the main indicator for the endurance is instead of just straight rucking, I've been rucking on I got a Stairmaster at a house. So I've been rucking on a Stairmaster. Today I did not do that though. I did like more anaerobic stuff. So I did some longer duration, sort of like I would call longer than tempo run, but not like distance running, not sprinting, like 45 seconds. Okay. Then I did some rowing, and then but for strength work, I did one top set of 6 on it's some sort of machine squat they have at 24 Fitness. It feels really good. I don't even know what the hell it's called, but I really like it. Then I did some leg curls and some agility drills to warm up for that. That's what I did today. So, but the very low volume on I don't need that much to maintain. I'm more worried about getting fat. I want to get a little bit lighter. I want to get down to, I'm like right around 240. I want to get down to 220. So I was up, like, I've kind of come down. I was up to over 300, a lot of years around 260, then parked around 250, 255 up until like 2023. Then I've come down to 240 now. So I'm doing it slowly because I know you're fighting age with speed, but I feel like if I can drop the body weight, then my speed will track up because if my strength to body weight ratio is a key indicator. So I'll use my strength, keep the volume lower now, but make sure my strength is staying up on those lifts. So like before this, when I was doing a lot more speed and explosive work, I did do a lot more, moderate to high reps and more volume in general, because I was focusing on speed, but I had a pretty good emphasis on hypertrophy. But now I'm focused on just endurance. I'm going to keep the speed work in there so it doesn't go away. But strength for me, I don't have to do that much to maintain it at all. I mean, I'm naturally strong. I naturally put on muscle. My struggle would be like endurance, fat loss, things like that. But I've always had a pretty high level of endurance. I'm going to work pretty hard at it, even when I was powerlifting.
That's a really good breakdown. That's something that, like my clientele over the years is 90% been, like average Joes, average Janes, right?
Mm-hmm.
But one of the big sort of principles I have with fat loss for people, like permanent fat loss, like getting lean, staying lean, is you have to improve your conditioning. Because like the way I view it is like, very similar to yourself, like strength to body weight ratio.
Mm-hmm.
If we're going to try to recalibrate your body weight set point and change all these things metabolically, hormonally, right?
Right.
You can't just lose weight. Like anyone can drop a bunch of weight quickly. It'll rebound back. You have to change your actual performance. So if we can get you lighter and leaner and faster, like, faster being the key emphasis here. So, and faster meaning what? Like faster, that could be mile time. That could be sprinting on like the assault bike.
Right. Whatever. 20-yard dash, anything.
Yeah, whatever. But if we can get you measurably faster at something that's like a short sprint and something that's kind of like a moderate distance, even if it's just like walking the treadmill. All right, let's like speed walk it, right? Go at 4 miles per hour and just keep dialing it up. Can you do, like almost to a jog, right? Can you go like at 4.4 on an incline, sustain that for 30 minutes? If we can get you faster, leaner, higher strength to body weight ratio, that will reset you, so to speak, physically, where you can drop the fat, build some muscle strength at the same time, and you'll stay there because now you actually have an objective measure of performance to maintain. Like, okay, so long as I can do this, I'll be, roughly speaking, I'll be at this body weight, at this body comp. And then my focus is not like trying to always like thinking about my weight. It's about my training performance. It's about getting better. It makes it's a much more enjoyable process, right, than just trying to focus on the scale.
Yeah, you have kind of a synergy going there, huh? Because have you seen those studies that show about the mile times and dropping weight?
Yeah, no, exactly, right?
Like, so if you're actually training too, because like basically what it comes down to is training and dropping body weight's pretty equal in the effect it's going to have on you. So imagine if you do both together, like you get synergy.
Yep. No, exactly. And then it doesn't have to be a mile time. Like if someone, ideally I'd like some people to run, if they can't run, they've had injuries, whatever, you can use a bike, you can use, something else.
So I've never been like into distance running much, but I was curious. So like, I don't know what I could run a mile in, but I did do with a 50-pound ruck. I ran 9:22 with it on 50 pounds. So I don't know what I can do with that. Yeah, I don't know what I can do without it. But like I never
That's pretty fast.
so
The ruck.
So here's the deal.
Yeah.
Time before that, I tried it. I'm like, I'm going for a 7-minute mile. I was going so fast, and I literally like shit out, dude. I was hauling, and it's like I just like somebody jumped on my back or something. Like I just couldn't go fast anymore. But I'm like, this is so easy. All these runners talking about this on pace. Then about 3/4 of the into a mile, I just when I tried a 7 minutes. So the 9:22, I started off too slow with the 50-pound ruck, and I'm like, this isn't so bad. Okay, I'll go a little faster, a little faster. Okay, I can tolerate. So I think to like do that, someone my size, a lot of it would be interesting. Was like the calves were the main fatiguer. I thought when I was going that fast, more than anything.
Yeah, for like the audience listening, like Josh is not a small person. Like Josh is, you've been well over 200 pounds, right? For your entire life, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, like a 220, 240-pound guy running like a 7 minute per mile speed, like that's pretty quick. Yeah, you'd readily have like a 7-minute mile or lower if you just.
I don't know because I don't know if it wouldn't make a difference. I hadn't. I think I could if I start practicing it. I just hadn't trained it. So like sometimes it's like I remember when I was in bodybuilding, the Stairmaster. This is when I was single. I was talking to this girl and she wanted to run, and so it was like midnight. I met her at some track, like they had one of those schools that had the lights on, and she ran like regularly, like was a runner. Dude, I smoked her ass because I've been doing Stairmaster twice a day for 45 minutes. And I was like, okay, I don't know where times were. Maybe she sucked, but I did smoke her for like a couple miles. That's my running experience.
Yeah.
For distance. I guess when I used to box, when I was a kid, I used to run a lot too, like in 8th grade. I boxed and I used to run every day before school for like 30, 40 minutes. So I was probably going pretty good at that point. But I don't have any data on what I was actually doing. I know I could outrun adults around the neighborhood that were jogging.
Yeah, I mean,
they might have sucked too. Who knows?
Yeah, I think like running gets debated about like, should everybody be running? Should everybody be sprinting? I'm like, if I had to choose one, I'd say sprinting over distance. One of my buddies, his name's Chris Masterjohn. He's like a PhD biochemist. Yeah, he makes this good point of like, with running, like, running's great, but if you're talking about like full body work capacity, he's more of the mindset that you'd want to focus on activities actually that use all 4 limbs. He's like, running is really like your lower body. It's your legs, obviously. He's like, which is great. Like you'll have really conditioned legs, but like, for him, he's like a big proponent of like boxing or some more functional training where like if you can do something where it's both your upper body and lower body working, you get more of an overall cardiovascular adaptation effect.
You do a lot of assault bike, right? I've seen you do it on X.
Yeah, like that's why I love the assault bike so much. I'm like, guess what? Like, there's always people that argue like, why not just run? I'm like, running is great. Like, I'll run, but for a lot of people, whether it's because of age, injury, not everyone where they live can just go outside and run. Or you can do treadmill. I'm like, you get an assault bike, you can go as hard as you want. You can smoke somebody. You can smoke yourself out. Sprint, but 10 seconds, just burn through so much freaking muscle glycogen. Work whatever fast recovery you have, or you can go slow. And you're never going to hurt yourself in the assault bike unless you make it fall over, right? When you're pedaling.
I mean, I guess you can't do anything, but the odds of injury sound a hell of a lot lower. Right? Like, I mean, yeah. Do they have? I need to check if they have one. I think they might have one of those at 24 Fitness. I need to look because I've thought about doing that. How much are they on average if you buy one for your house? I have no idea. It's worth the investment.
Yeah, no, it varies. Like, so there's a couple models on the market. Like the assault bike is the assault bike. Those I think usually run about like 700, or like have a couple models. And then like Rogue makes an Echo bike, which is like a very beefed up version. I think those are around like 850, I want to say.
Oh.
And then like the classical air bike model is actually the Airdyne, which Airdynes have like a lot more friction. Those are brutal. I have one in my garage, but I got that for like $500. Like
okay,
where I was living before. Yeah, so you know how it goes, like with treadmills, right, or anything. Like someone bought it, never used it once, and they just sold it. So when I went and pick it up, I was like, oh, like cool. Like how much have you, did you like using it? Whatever. He's like, guys, like I think I rode that thing like 3 times in like the last 5 years. It just sits in my garage. It gets used as a clothes hanger, right, or whatever.
Right. Because my garage is where I train out. Most is 3-car garage, and I don't have any space in there. So I'm like not as up to date on the prices as I once was of like, there's literally not room in there. I mean, I'd have to like get rid of everything in there, something in there to put something else in there. And I like what I have in there. So I don't really want to do that. So I've
Yeah,
been a little out of touch with all that stuff.
I mean, the cool thing to the bikes, they just, unlike a treadmill, they just have such a small footprint.
Yeah.
You can pack that thing into a corner. Like it's not like a big piece of equipment, like in terms of just, how much space it takes up.
That's so true. No, I agree with that.
Yeah, so I want to ask you, your conditioning now. It's like obviously you're doing you're doing sprints, doing the hills, you're like an endurance phase. Are there certain things that like you always keep in, like with the sprinting, like that's always 1 day a week, or like the hill
1 day a week, no matter
always
what.
there? Okay.
So I've found that that you like basically I got to do it 1 day a week or I'll lose it. So there's like, because I was like thinking getting into sprinting took me a lot of years again. So I was always doing powerlifting and stuff to like really short stuff for like get offs and things like that to kind of potential workouts. Like say potentially at a squat or deadlift session, but very short sprints. Then I kind of got away from it for a bit. I did hill sprints for a while, like right when I got done, powerlifting, competing and stuff when I was coaching at the Kennedale High School. And then I kind of got away from it for a while. Then I started doing it again. And I only did it like with really steep hills and probably not full speed or like sleds that were resisted. And then to really get into it, I started off doing like tempo runs, very short distances, because most injuries in sprinting happen inside of 20 yards. And so for most people, unless you're like kind of a dysfunction, you can get away with under 20 yards once you get acclimated to it. But it took a long time to get pretty like as fast as I am. It took like a couple of years to really like comfortable just sprinting. So I can't lose that. I feel like, dude, I could go on like a 10-year drinking binge and cocaine and hookers and probably be stronger than the average person. For real. That's just that genetically I'm lucky that way, but not with sprinting, not with endurance. If I lay off it for a couple months, it's not good. So always do that, and I always do some form of rucking.
Okay, that's super useful to hear. It's like, I mean, lots of people like, actually, you could tell the people, but like getting into sprinting, yes, I'm always like kind of warning people about it. Sprints are awesome, but like you just said, most injuries happen in the first 20 yards. Like people hurt themselves where they just think they can like start running fast immediately.
Or outside the first 20 yards, so they go further. The further you go, so here's the thing: Achilles can happen, boom, you explode right off the gate, right? So you might want to jog into it, but really like 20 yards or so, I found you're okay for most, assuming you're like functional. Like there's some people that are like, there's some dysfunctions going on. They've only been lifting. I'm saying if you're doing something like moving around somewhat, I would still acclimate into it, but usually you start going beyond 20 yards, it gets a little, more sketch for sure, more higher probability of injury. I think it does take like a long time to build into it. If you want to do it right, you have to also think it depends on what sort of athlete you are. Going back to, are you neurologically put together as an efficient machine? That's a question you have to be truthful with yourself around. If like, you were at a high school with 100 people and you're third string, on the JV football team as a junior, you're probably not, and you probably could go out there and be fine. But if you're like somebody that has had a, athletic prime and you're pretty strong, there's probably a lot more there still than you actually think. So if you come out like, the gates of hell blazing, you're gonna have problems. So like, I would say like when Men's Health and all these places like in like 2012 was kind of like popular. Now it's more like aerobics, the trend, but then it was more high intensity interval training, if you remember. And everybody was like, go out there and sprint instead of jog. So I see people, I remember when I first moved to this neighborhood, I'm in a real fancy, kind of like freaking Beverly Hillbillies of this area out here. But anyways, come up, this fancy subdivision. Some guy started talking to me. I'm like, oh, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm sprinting. I'm like, oh shit, this light just went off in my head. I'm like, you people think that's sprinting. To me, that's like just some middle-aged dude jogging for a short distance. Like that ain't sprinting. Sprinting means your top speed. So it's going to be different for everybody. Just how like my max and deadlift's different than yours and different from whomever's, right? Of course. But sprinting to me, I think we have to be careful of the terminology we're using, because I'll assign people to get back into sprinting. Like I say, hey, we're going to do like a tempo run. You're going like, 75 yards in 18 seconds, which is pretty not very fast. And they'll, if I email that to them, they report back and say the sprints, and I keep using the terminology, I keep correcting, but I think we have to be careful of, I know like Buddy Morse and those guys, and like the Thinker and all those dudes that were running together are very like proper in their terminology.
Mm.
And I can see why they get that way. You know what I mean? Because you're like, what does this actually mean? Like, if you're running 9 miles per hour, that's not a sprint unless you're 90 years old or, have no athletic background. So I think we have to be careful of the terminology we're using. So things can be very prescribed.
No, I agree. Linguistics count for a lot, since you can have two people talking about the same thing using the same term, but what their experiences are very different.
Yeah. 100%. So like, so I think you have to be careful getting into it. So if you're going to get into sprinting, I think it's a really good thing and I would recommend it, but just make sure you get with somebody qualified to like kind of break you into it and has a process to actually do that. Kind of person that got me into it was, again, I fired up about it was, I did, so randomly, again, we're talking about like being in the right place at the right time. Charles Poliquin, I've always read all his books, but I didn't know the dude at all. He like, and so like he wrote me on LinkedIn. I didn't even know who knew who it was. He's like, hey, do you want to, he's like, I wish there was more people in the industry like you or something. Just send a message. He's like, call me when you get a chance. So like I dropped everything. I'm like, I had stuff to do. I'm like, obviously if Charles Poliquin wants to talk to you, drop everything and call him. So like within 30 seconds, I called him. We were on the phone for like 3 hours. Then he's like, oh, at some point I want to do a seminar with you. This is 2 years later, he randomly said, all right, you'll be in Chicago like next week. Just give me your information to get a flight kind of thing. I'm like, okay, cool. So did a seminar with him. But anyways, one of the people at the seminar was Al Vermeil. You know who that is?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he started we went to lunch together and he just screamed out of nowhere. He's like, the reason old men have pancake asses is because they don't sprint. So I'm like, oh, this is like getting intriguing. And it was pretty funny because he was saying like some crazy, the thing aloud. It was kind of entertaining, but it was very useful. The dude's brilliant, right? So I'm like, I'm going to pick this guy's brain. So I got him talking about sprinting. And then like we talked on the phone a couple times. He got me so fired up and interested in it. And then, because I'd done the tempo runs. I'd actually been to do the tempo runs by Coach Moffitt over he was at LSU. He's at Texas A&M now, but like 20 some years earlier. So I'd taught him. And then Alice had mentioned get back into the tempo runs and stuff. And I did, and then kind of started doing my own hill sprints because that's what I had done in like 20 years earlier and loved it, and kind of put together my own thing of then since then I've had a chance to luckily I also had a chance to experiment successfully on a lot of clients along the way before I got into it myself. So I kind of had a good process already of how to get people into it just through having to figure it out because I was working with these people.
That's super cool. Al, I met years. I doubt he remembers. But I was just in the audience. He was at a conference, just giving a talk on like it was athletic periodization for like volleyball athletes, something like that. But like, just a very funny guy, right? You've met him. Like this was hilarious.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't know if he remembered me from the first time we did the thing at Charles Poliquin's. He just said, yeah, call me. Like, it wasn't like, oh yeah, it was great. Went to lunch. It was like, he started talking. I don't think I got a word in, but I didn't want to get a word in. I just wanted to take notes. I didn't care. Then the next time I recorded it, said, hey, can we do this on YouTube? He's like, sure. And I have the interview's up there on YouTube somewhere.
Oh, that's cool. When was that?
It's a while ago. I'd say like over COVID or something. I mean, it wasn't like 20 years ago, but it wasn't like, it might've been, it's probably 2019 at the earliest, and then maybe 2021 at the latest in that period of time.
Yeah, no, I'll definitely look for that. Yeah, I mean that was like 5 or 6 years ago at this point.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was really good, and it kind of influenced me there. So that was a real meaningful interaction, whether he knows that or not. I told him, but yeah, definitely got a lot out of that to influence my own training.
Yeah, that's huge. And then I wanted to ask you too. Obviously, you trained at Metroflex. You were there when like a lot of the guys were there. What was like the biggest bodybuilding influences you had in terms of how you approach this pure hypertrophy?
First one was definitely Brian Dobson for sure
Mm.
at Metroflex, and then the owner of Metroflex, and then kind of like basically what happened is we train together and we do bodybuilding stuff. So I say, "All right, you're in charge of the training for bodybuilding. Like I'm not here to like ask, you know, or question you in that regard. I'll ask questions of why, but like not like, hey, why are we doing this? Let's do this instead. I want to literally do what you want to do. So our thing was then for strength, we do strength cycles together and I'd be in charge of that. But it was basically our thing was if something causes the wrong kind of pain, let the person know so we figure out something else. I've said really the guidelines learned piggybacked off each other, but I learned a lot from him. And then a lot of it was they probably don't know, like Branch Warren, Johnny Jackson, these guys were there, but then I ended up actually training them, even though I was kind of watching them the whole time. They came to me, so I didn't say, what am I to do? But so I got a lot of that, like from that, but then like the kind of power building, that's always how I train because I've learned a lot of the powerlifting stuff from Steve Hall, I had mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm.
He was kind of like you're saying, like a guy that was like a slug outside the gym for a long time. But he had been a bodybuilder previously, so he would like may not do it himself, but he would tell me, all right, you got to do your tricep extensions, your flies, this kind of stuff. Then working at the gym, I'd mentioned a lot of people that came in there were like, again, Jailhouse strong. They're all ex-cons, been out of prison. That's when they had weights. So they were all high volume. And then I saw a lot of bodybuilders train. So I'm like, I always figured because that period of time period in powerlifting was like people getting kind of lazy. It was sort of like the equipment was taking, I was a raw lifter, but a lot of the equipment was kind of getting popular. And it was like kind of like, what do you do for your workout? I put on my bench shirt. I do like 3 singles, then like lat pull downs for 2 sets and like 3 sets of banded tricep push downs. And that's a workout, that's not how I don't like to train that way. Even if it was better, even at when I was obsessed with powerlifting, I only cared about it. I wouldn't have trained that way. I would have just either been worse or done something else because I've always loved to train. That's why this hasn't been like how do you get over powerlifting? It wasn't about powerlifting. I just loved to train physically, like like doing boxing and stuff. When I was like in football, I was always the most well conditioned. I've always just loved to train and kind of like testing this biological organism that houses my soul. It's fun to me. I love to do it. Whether it's strength, endurance, whatever, speed. That's how I roll.
Yeah, I remember that era because a lot of stuff like in powerlifting kind of trickled down to like just general personal training.
Yeah.
It got ridiculous where I think it was like a carrier from this like equipped powerlifting of like, all right,
That's
like
exactly what it was.
Yeah, a squat day was like you'd work up to like but this wasn't, like I remember in personal training world, like having average Joes like, all right, your leg day is going to be a triple with like 155, right? Like it was so non-applicable. We're going to do a set, we're going to do some triples, and then we're going to do like some cable pull throughs. Remember those? Like you got to do pull throughs, and then maybe like a box squat. I'm like, this maybe for certain people this is effective who are high level athletes, but when you're working with regular people that number one they barely have the mobility to squat to depth, and they don't have the work capacity, and they don't have any muscle. And you're trying to make them do like a wide stance box squat, telling them they gotta get their upper back tight. They have no idea what's going on. Like this is just ridiculous. Then the volume was so low too, for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Like nobody wanted to do more than like 2 or 3 sets of stuff.
No, you're exactly right. I mean, and there's still some trickle over that. Like now we're going back to long rest periods, right? And like that's like the new trend. And I'm seeing that commercial gyms of like, I saw a girl there today at 24 Fitness when I was on the treadmill. And because you can see down, and she was doing like, I don't know, she's not like fat, but a little bit overweight. I don't know what she was training for. I was assume not powerlifting because she wouldn't do that low, but just like bench press. Okay. Like literally like 85 pounds for 6 reps and rested 5 minutes. I'm like, I can't, when warming up, I'm like, I got to be wrong here. So I timed it on the treadmill. It was a 5-minute rest between set doing nothing else. Like, I mean, wouldn't you be better off to do more and just do 80 pounds if your max is that low? I mean, why the hell would you do that? Like, it's not Julius Maddox, Like, so I think there's just like this trend of like, Well, it takes like, 5 minutes to fully recover, but they're doing this on like elite lifters or something. That's how, like, yeah, if, Usain Bolt shows up and runs 100 meters, yeah, he should probably wait a long time before he does it again. But if you're just getting into this, you need to wait like, 12 minutes between 40-yard so-called sprints. I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean that's something. No, I agree. That like I've written about this over the years, like rest periods, like should you rest less or rest more? I'm like, well, like context. For your heaviest working set, I can understand resting
Yeah.
longer. Okay, but also like, how strong are you actually? Because, I mean, even like, I'm not exceptionally gifted with strength, anything like, if I work up to a heavy set, let's take on a deadlift, all right, like I'll rest in between like those two working sets or whatever the big set is. It'll be for like smaller muscle groups or accessories, isolation movements, like whatever, biceps, chest flies, calf raises, just all,
Right.
all that kind of stuff. Like, there's no way in hell you need 3 to 4 minutes.
But even compound movements, like doing the step ups and stuff, I literally just my rest is like walk over the plates. Like Tom Havland, you know what that is, I'm assuming. And he like his thing, like, how do you do this so fast? Well, it's like part of the work capacity is I grab plates, load them, go to the next one, do the set. That's what you kind of do until you get like crazy heavy where you need to like take a little longer. But you'd be surprised also because all the studies show that initially, but as your work capacity increases, how much less rest you actually need, and then it's kind of, okay, I got this in the bank, so I'm going to go really heavy today. I'm going to take 5 minutes. So you feel like freaking Superman that day, where like, if you're always doing this, I just don't understand, like, of like in these commercial gym extremes of like, it's either like there's absolutely like just like I'm gonna go to like just bullshit of like, like I don't even know what it's called here. It's like some of these fitness classes that are like at studios and stuff where like it's a lunge to curl to row to overhead press in like one movement. And like, what the hell's the point of that? So I guess the curl's getting some decent work out of that, maybe. I'm hoping the lunge doesn't, or the overhead press, so there's a problem. So like, what's the point of that? Or are you trying to pre-fatigue your bicep for the row? Or why are we doing this? It's like just this like ugly collage of just nonsensical bullshit, for lack of a better term. What the hell is the point of that? Like, why? Like, there's that, or like, oh, hey, I squat 90 pounds. Somebody's 65 pounds for 3 sets of 6. I'm going to wait 12 minutes in between. Oh, and I'm sure that 12 minutes is like purpose driven and focused, or you're circle jerking on your phone watching some crap on TikTok. That's what it is, It's so weird. Like at some of these commercial gyms, I'm happily married, but I see like girls in there, young guys, and these girls are just like flaunting themselves, and they're so focused on their phone and TikTok, they don't even notice it. I mean, they've do that to guys in 20 years who've been raging hard while walking around. It's just different time period of like people so focused on what they shouldn't be focused on.
Very different time period. Yeah, that's it's funny. There's certain like there's stuff that I thought maybe would go away over time. Like I'll say that the younger crowd, like people do compound movements a lot more. Like,
yeah, that's
way more than
right.
they used to. Like you do see people doing compound movements, but they rest a lot. Arguably too long for just like exercise you don't need to rest for.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the phones, the chicks that film themselves. One of the funny things that hasn't gone away still, like you just said, the stupid like compound class exercises. Yeah, I still see personal trainers do it to this day. It's like we're going to do like the one-legged RDL to the shoulder press, and then we'll like superset it with like a plank. I'm like, how is this still being done? Like it's 2025.
I mean, yeah, I'm with you. Like this example, we say like I did one thing today, like right. So I'm doing like the machine squats, right? I want to get a little extra trap work. So at the end of it, I'll shrug up on the thing a little bit. But that's like it's something that's not really fatiguing that, where it's not like, and I know that's not the primary purpose. I'm going to get a little extra trap movement today because I'm limited on time. But like to act like this is some kind of serious thing. If I told you like I am committed to build the biggest traps and this is what I'm going to do, you'd be like, you're an idiot. Like that's, maybe you're getting a little extra stimulation there, but like, let's, call it what it is. And if you ask them that, I think a lot of it is people want to entertain each other. And like, there is some of the novelty stimulus for sure. But like, if that's all you do and all you base your training philosophy or business on, whatever, there should be a bigger coming to the circus. So you better be ready to up your clown game. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, it's surprising to me still. Like we do live like in a golden age of like fitness, science, knowledge, all these
Yeah,
things.
for sure.
But then a lot of trainers like still they don't read anything. I guess they watch YouTube, but they actually don't know how to strength train anyone. Like the most basic fundamental thing of like knowing how to just do compound movements, the big three, progressive overload. They don't know how it works.
Yeah, they
It's
do all
like
this crazy stuff, then they'll buy the most basic book like 531 and go implement it and figured it out finally. It's like that's why I think places like starting strength and stuff for that success is like it's very basic progressive overload, and then like people are trying so much craziness. I've even seen that with like people you'd expect to have better knowledge and experience with it are like educated and actually work with athletes. I remember the classic example I used. This guy did a phone consultation with me a long time ago, and I was thinking like he sounded like a genius. Like he sounded so smart. I'm like, what the hell am I going to tell this guy? Because he's figured out. And then I finally he weighed 230. I said, "What do you bench press?" It's like, "Oh, 230." He said in kilograms of 105. I said, "What do you bench press?" So that's 230, right? So some other countries will use pounds and kilos in the same conversation, kind of throws you off. So I weigh 105 kilos. Oh, 231. What do you bench press? 230. I'm like, oh, shit. This guy can't even bench his body weight under 1 pound. And he's had this then he like wrote me, I'm like, you just need to do something. So he didn't start training with me. I'm like, you need to do something really basic. I gave him options. Then he wrote me, I think it was 531, but it's some sort of program like that. He's like, yeah, ever since you told me to get on that, he's like 275 in no time. I'm like, all this double whatever Russian periodization and literally the most basic program, you've made the gains of your life. It's like you've outsmarted yourself in a sense, you've like it's such a outsmarted you become stupid kind of thing. So I feel like there's a lot of that too, of like just I don't know what it is of like, we're also in the golden age, we're in the golden age of all this for the most part, but there is also more nonsense too. So I think that's the thing, it's the information age. So the best information is clearly the best, right? Where the worst is also the worst because everybody's got a platform.
Yeah, well, everyone can be sort of like equal in their reach. Like, I've noticed this is the same thing over years of programming. I've had people like I remember when West Side was really popular, right?
Right.
And this is not to talk smack about West Side. Like West Side, elite level powerlifters, equipped guys. But then this got filtered down to like again like to the normie world, bro world, and there's all these dudes that want to do like West Side training, but they can't like squat more in their body weight, right? Like they're not even at like a basic sort of like like whatever the starting strength kind of like standards, right? Like okay, if you can do a 315 squat, a 405 deadlift, like 225 bench, okay, like which most men, unless you're like as a small guy, should be able to do.
Sure.
But they want to do West Side, right? So it's like they're going to have like a dynamic day and do speed work, and they're going to like get changed. They want to use bands. Like I'll see that now, like guys putting bands on the bar for stuff. I'm like, you got like it's bands with like one plate on, right? Because your bench press or your squat, your deadlift is not much more than what you weigh. I'm like, that's just like, yeah, it's
and you'd be interested to hit him up and ask him why.
Yeah, but it's like, well, I saw it, like, it looks really cool. It's like gonna do this. I'm like, bro, all you need at this point is just basic linear periodization. Like, do sets of 5, add 5 pounds every week or every other week. Like, just run that for 6 months and don't change anything. Just do 2-3 sets of 5,
100%
for 6 months and just see what happens. You don't need bands. You don't need chains. You don't need the boards. You don't need to do a box squat or an overload set. Like just sets of 5. Linear,
I think they're paranoid or something about like a spillover effect or something. Because like I always say, like Ronnie Coleman squatted 800 for a double, right? Had he squatted 900 for a double, his legs probably wouldn't have been that much different. He just increased the chance of injury. If you're on a 4.540, you weigh 200, you squat 500. That's about the tipping point. It would be 2.5 times body weight, the strength body weight ratio on that lift. Where you go beyond that, you're kind of powerlifting because you want to get stronger. The problem with that is it increases the chance of injury and causes more central fatigue and overall fatigue. Where I think people might think they're at that level of like, oh, well, this person doesn't need to stop because of whatever, so I don't need to either. The difference is they've, built a base already, and that kind of thing. Or they're on a ton of drugs you're not on, or probably more than likely both.
Yeah, I mean that linear strength base. That's really like the first year of training, I think, for most people.
At least,
it's just like simple progressive overload, and then finally, probably around 12 months, it kind of it taps out of like, all right, we have to get more intelligent about this. Things will go slower, but the initial like year one, you just figure out your technique, your form.
Right. Why make it harder
weight.
than it has to be?
Yeah, just keep it simple.
And then you're gonna have to pull some stuff out eventually. So you might as well keep it. Just if you're trying to drop fat, you don't need to, like, if you're weigh 300 pounds, you don't need to go on 1,200 calories a day. Just do, you start at probably 4,000. You'll be dropping, and start there. You're dropping, then you're gonna have to decrease at some point, but don't go straight to the bottom right out of the gate.
Yeah, like the crash diet effect, right? Like everyone will lose weight on 2,000, 1,500 calories.
Yeah.
But then you have nowhere you can't adjust anything.
Where do you go?
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, you just that's it's the rebound, right?
Yeah, all the time. That's been around forever. It's funny about that. My uncle, he was way overweight, and they put him on in UCLA. Put him on. This was got to be the early '80s. Some experiment of, I don't recall what it was called, but he only had like liquid protein for like 6 months, and I think he went from like 460 to like 230 or something crazy.
Damn.
But he, so. I mean, yeah, but I'm saying, like, the point being, he gained it all back.
Okay, well, yeah.
That was my point of, like, all these crash dieting and stuff. Like, it's one thing to crash diet if you're pretty lean and you're gonna go to Mexico in 10 weeks for vacation, and you want to be like the rip dude the first day at the resort. Cool, but like, to actually think this is like a sustainable thing all the time, not so much.
Yeah, I mean, dieting, like we talked about earlier with like physiologically getting faster. If you want to permanently change your body comp, it has to be like a slow and steady process.
Right.
2 pounds maximum a week. Maybe it takes a year, if you're really heavy, but it takes a year. Desire for rapid weight loss. I've seen that with like the GLP-1s, which I think can be really cool, but I've seen people, they get really hyped, like, oh, I dropped, like 20 pounds in a month. I'm like, you're just going to end up skinny fat, and you're going to eventually have to stop it. They're not meant to be used for the rest of your life.
Well, and they're gonna also, and they're also gonna have, like, they're not gonna be excited about it when they drop 1 pound the next month or 2 pounds, where they should be. Like, so that's the other part, is the novelty wears off of, especially a lot of that stuff is like, I feel so good, this is so awesome. Then, well, your homeostasis becomes reset, so then you're desensitized to it in a lot of ways, both mentally, physiologically, so on, and you have those problems then.
Yeah, no, I've seen that like firsthand. Some of the groups I've been in with people using GLP-1s, which like I think can be amazing, but then the people, like, the mentality hasn't changed, right? Like, they just want the drug, they don't exercise, they don't want to learn anything about nutrition or actually like proper dieting. They drop a bunch of weight the first month, and they get like really tired.
What's the deal? So what's the amount of people that it seems to be ineffective for, out of curiosity? Because I've seen a couple people that have tried that have not had. I've seen like amazing transformations. I know of 2 people that I'm pretty sure are doing what they're supposed to. They're not clients, but they're friends, and they didn't really get any sort of meaningful weight loss from it.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's like a variety. So like, there's 2 on the market, and there's the third one is like the one that's like the research chem. So you have like Ozempic. You got
this was Ozempic, prescription Ozempic. Yep.
Yeah, the problem with Ozempic for a lot of people is so just like GLP-1 receptor, right? Its primary mechanism is it suppresses appetite, but then it can also have a lot of side effects. Like if you try to go higher dose. So some people, they don't respond to it much, where they can like kind of eat through it. It just doesn't have that strong of an effect.
Yep.
But when they go higher on it, now it's like, oh, my stomach like really hurts.
So
that makes sense. It doesn't always work that well for people. Whereas like the tirzepatide one and the Retta, they tend to work better for a broader range of people with less sides.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't researched it super heavily yet, but I'm just trying to gather data, because I know as time goes on, I'll deal with more clients that are using it, so I need to learn more about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I got into them. Where it was just, I had people ask me about them like a couple of years ago, like, hey, like semaglutide, like Ozempic, right? I had some bodybuilding friends that used it for competition. I'm like, what are you using? And they're like, it's like it's a research chem right now. It'll be on the market like in a year and a half. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And then, I had people that just, told me like, hey, I'm using this, like, just to let you know. I'm like, oh, well, I got to research this, right? And I dove into it. And like, when they're used correctly, which, I mean, this is the irony, right? If you're going to use any kind of GLP-1 correctly, nothing changes with training or dieting.
Right.
Like, it's not like it like changes the nutrition process, doesn't change training. It just gives you psychological space to, not be thinking about food, to make better choices. But everything else stays the same.
Absolutely. No, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So I think I've had somewhere around I've had a couple hundred people utilize them at this point. Like one of my biohacking groups got like thousands of people in. So I have a pretty good data set.
That's awesome.
Yeah, which is cool. But it's always I crack up every day because every day I'm like yelling at everyone. With good intentions. Like, all right, everybody, are you like following your diet and doing the training and all that? Because that's actually what's going to work. Don't get caught in the cycle of like I can just take more of this drug and then like that will solve all my problems. I'm like, yeah, your problems didn't start with your weight, started with your mentality.
That's a damn good way to put it. Absolutely. I'm 100% on that. Yep. That's a tool to help you get there.
Yeah. This is another tool in the toolbox. Yeah. As like we say sometimes.
It's an accessory, not the main lift. In gym verbiage. So what else you got for me?
Oh no, yeah, my son's like in the. I have to go take him to. We've been talking almost like 2 hours. I didn't realize.
Yeah, I didn't realize.
I was just trying
down. It's like football practice. It's coming up.
Yeah, no, I'll let you go. This is a great talk.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Coming up.
Yeah,
let me know and I'll post it. So.
Oh yeah, I'll get this process in like it's about 48 hours. But just like final closing, where can people find you? How can they work with you? Like, what do you want to shout out?
Okay, yeah. So my website's joshstrength.com. That'd be your most comprehensive information. You can go there, contact me to work with me directly on there. There's a contact form on there. My ex, I know that's where we know each other primarily from, is Josh Strength. Instagram is at Jailhouse Strong. And those would really be the best ways to get a hold of me through there. So look forward to hearing from everybody. And I really appreciate Ajax you having me on here. And I'm sure we'll meet up here some point now that you're in Texas. So that'd be cool.
Oh yeah, for sure. Awesome, man. Thank you so much for doing this.
All right, buddy. I really appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah. Adios.
All right. Bye.